My advice to any young person looking to get into this sector is first and foremost, I think you need to have a kind of a patient focused heart and mindset where what you're doing is impacting someone other than yourself.
Welcome to Medical Sales U, the podcast. I'm your host, Dave Sterrett, where we delve into the world of healthcare and innovation. And today's guest is Chase Wasson. He's a leader. He's been named one of 40 under 40 top leaders in the area of oncology. He's worked across different diseases and innovations in the healthcare industry, in diagnostics, in pharma, in medical device. Chase, talking to Chase from Dallas, Texas. Chase, great to have you on the show.
Dave, great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
So let's just get to this. Are you a Cowboys fan?
Well, I think that's a loaded question, right? On Sundays when they win, yes, but in Dallas and being a Cowboys fan, we're judged by Super Bowls, so it's been tough to be a Cowboy fan as of late.
Right. Well, we always say the future is bright. You know, I lived in Dallas for a while. That's where I got started in medical sales and the diagnostics with like sleep apnea and mobile cardiac telemetry. Then I went over to Foundation Medicine and now living in Columbus, Ohio. And so I still pull for the Cowboys, but it's great to meet you virtually. And I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed in the past. But maybe tell us a little bit about your current role. What do you do right now?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Dave. I'm privileged to work in the diagnostic space myself right now with an organization, Caris Life Sciences. And, we really feel like we're pioneering the field of precision medicine. We get a chance to work with not only community practices across the country, but also large academic centers, really, playing a small part in giving clinicians a blueprint so that whenever a patient does come in with metastatic disease, we're giving them, the right, at least shot for the right drug, the right time, and really mitigating a lot of risk for these patients to be on the inappropriate therapeutics, et cetera, as the world of precision medicine continues to evolve. So in my role, I feel like I'm very blessed because not only do I get to work alongside a great group of teammates across our enterprise, but also, building rapport with thought leaders in the cancer space, with healthcare executives across, the continuum of care that really, we all share the same mission, and that's driving both quality innovation and really improving outcomes for the patients and providers we serve.
Well, this is a very unique role you have. Is this your title, Vice President of Corporate Accounts? Is that your current title?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. And, for a lot of our listeners, they're wanting to break into the industry, but we also have people who've been sales reps and they want to advance in their career, right? Like they've been maybe a sales rep for either device or specialty pharmaceutical sales. And this is a unique role you have. So maybe you could tell us a little bit, like, what does that look like? Is this your call points? What are some of the things that you're hoping to negotiate in this current role?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question, Dave. And for our audience, I think kind of painting the picture of, we all start right in the sales rep or clinical sales capacity. And I don't care what your title is. At the end of the day in healthcare, you're always in a sales type of role. Mm-hmm. So what I'm privileged to do in my capacity is I lead organizational strategy, which really then encompasses commercial execution of getting our test in the hands of providers. Now, from the corporate account standpoint, and for all those that have made a career in medical sales, diagnostics, even biopharma, 15, 20 years ago, the days of clinicians being the ultimate decision maker were very true. Well, as we continue to evolve in healthcare, as value-based care continues to make its impact on, both providers, both payers, even institutions, what my role really does is ensure that as an organization, we're aligning the priorities from the customer along with kind of the value add that we feel like we bring with whether it's data partnerships, whether it's EHR integration, whether it's improving workflow for pathology departments that continue to be understaffed, we create a streamlined process so that when patients do, get the devastating news of a diagnosis, there's a process in place for our customers that mitigates kind of that time to treatment, which is a big quality metrics in the field of diagnostics right now. So, in a nutshell, I get a chance to work with leadership at the institutional level, leadership at the GPO level, leadership at the provider level to ensure that our teams are well versed in what their mission is as an organization. And then we really fine tune, our value prop to align with ways to synergize, ways to enhance the precision medicine brand within, the respective practices that we partner with. But overall, in roles like this, the corporate account type executive leadership roles, you're really wearing a hat of driving sales, aligning visions of both customer and internal your own internal network. So it's really a quasi Jerry Maguire to the customer, both internally and externally.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
But at the end of the day, for all those that have had success in healthcare and our trusted industry partner, it becomes about your value prop and trusted alignment with, just aligned vision for the partners that you serve.
Chase, you mentioned several terms that, for those who are in the industry and oncology and have been specifically with diagnostics or precision medicine or oncology, they're going to be very familiar with. But we have listeners here who are brand new, and they may not even be aware of what's taking place in oncology and really what even is precision medicine. Could you maybe even just back us way up to the basic level for that listener who is brand new and they're wondering, okay, what is cancer testing and maybe really what is precision medicine and how is this whole testing, why is it so important and what's involved?
Sure. And by no means am I an expert. I will tell you, I entered this field about 3 years ago, coming to Caris with what I thought I knew. And every day you learn something new because this space of genomics and precision medicine is really the fastest pace and most evolving landscape in healthcare. But let me backtrack. And this is for our audience. Each and every one of us at some time in our life will receive a diagnosis that ultimately results in some form of therapeutic. That's fact. In the world of precision medicine, what has really transpired over the last 5, 10 plus years, when a patient initially came in for a cancer diagnosis, let's say 5, 10 years ago, it was chemo, pray, get your affairs in order, more or less.
Yes.
As biopharmaceutical organizations continue to press the envelope of innovating, targeted therapeutics, immunotherapeutics, the recipe for these providers to pick the right therapeutic that now targets these certain mutations has improved tremendously. And that's really where the world of precision medicine, specifically what I get a chance to impact every day at Caris, we really play a part in. So in a nutshell, what precision medicine really is we're able to fine tune and really look at the human genome, both DNA, RNA, even down to the protein level, to give clinicians and patients both alike, a diagnosis that says, when I have X, I have the ability to go after with Y, which is a targeted drug, which we know has outcomes-based behaviors due to, the advances in AI technologies, et cetera, that really give patients confidence and providers this blueprint, right? That when I test with an enterprise like Caris, I have the utmost confidence that this drug is going to work, outcomes are going to be efficient. And, if we need to improve or adjust therapeutics, there's other alternatives we can look at as we continue to test this patient throughout their journey.
It's fascinating. Years ago, as you mentioned, a cancer patient would have been treated all the same with chemotherapy. And now there's a world of innovation that no cancer patient is exactly alike. They're unique and their genetic makeup is unique. And there's options, right? There's the NCCN guidelines that is guiding these patients and recommending, and then there's FDA approved treatment, but also there's the option of clinical trials. But there's all this data involved in the complexity of the data. And while that's taking place simultaneously, there's all these treatments that are coming out year by year, and it's often a challenge. You mentioned several things that maybe could help our new time listeners understand. You mentioned GPO. All right, that's a term there. Maybe back us up. Tell us a little bit about the relationship, with you mentioned electronic health records. You could talk to us a little bit about the dynamics of those two items, and maybe how does that play once a oncologist decides that a patient needs to be tested? Where do these other entities come in and play?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think to really level set with our audience, I mentioned this briefly beforehand, but in my days early on as a biopharmaceutical sales rep, right, I go to customer X, give the value prop, educate on the clinical utility of the product. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that provider was able to, through his own or her own, autonomy of choice, make a decision on which therapeutic they wanted to provide their patient. Fast forward in today's world, specific to oncology, and it's evolving into other therapeutic areas. Formularies and pathways drive behavior. What I mean by that is typically, especially in the oncology space, more so in the community sector, pathways drive decision making, and a lot of those pathways are dictated by formulary status or coverage by a variety of payers that the biomanufacturer, the pharmaceutical company has negotiated various rates, clinical utility, et cetera, of the product. On the GPO sector, precision medicine hasn't necessarily evolved yet into institutional-based contracting, which for all of those that are in device and even in the drug world, there are these GPOs, group purchasing organizations, the health trusts, the premiers, the Vizients, just to name a few, act as a convener or a third party that negotiate with the manufacturer to essentially create kind of streamlined behaviors for the institutions that they manage. In theory, what that allows is really processes in place that if you go and get treatment in, as an example, Ohio, where you're from, Dave, and you're part of an HCA, conglomerate that's tied to Health Trust, the products you receive in Ohio would be the same products you would receive at Dallas, Texas, HCA Medical City. So in theory, the GPO creates standardization and really clinical utility of whatever products they deem are appropriate, device, drug, et cetera. Precision medicine, we continue to evolve in understanding payers' influence decision-making. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. Where I see the market moving and where as value-based care and quality continues to really impact clinical decision-making from the dollars and cents side, we really feel like precision medicine to the third party, payer landscape really mitigates downstream risk for providers, even institutions, along purchasing of whatever infused products they're looking at. Because if you're making the decisions up front appropriately, getting these patients on the right therapeutic, you're mitigating downstream risk of additional surgeries, additional visits to the hospital, unfortunate ED visits, et cetera, that really ding these quality metrics that a lot of these organizations are moving towards in the value-based care model.
Yes, that's wonderful. If we have that patient correctly diagnosed upfront, early, quick results, and there's great communication between the oncologist and the pathologist and the other people in play with the diagnostic, and then there can be with the relationship with GPOs, we're preventing these patients from getting the wrong treatment. Chase, you've had a fascinating career, and what I was thinking about doing just for fun is maybe taking us back to the early days. You're now a vice president. You have these corporate accounts. You juggle multiple roles, but maybe take us back to the early days. How did you even, from college, how did you even break into this industry?
Well, I think relationships, first and foremost, created the opportunity, Dave. But, I had the great fortune of having football really fund my education in college and had the privilege to be in the huddle with, tremendous teammates that really gave me great perspective on valuing, what it means to compete as a team, win as a team. Graduated from Texas State University in San Marvelous, aka San Marcos, Texas. Believe it or not, Dave, I was one of the first 3 in the country who I wouldn't say took advantage, but sought opportunity to pursue a master's degree, and pursued my master's at the University of Oklahoma. Got to play for tremendous coaches and leadership, Coach Stoops, Coach Heupel was on that staff, Joey Halsley now at Tennessee, Kevin Sumlin, Coach Gundy. I mean, the list goes on and on. Brent Venables, who's now the head coach at OU. So I say that to say I had a foundation of really competitive teaming and sports, specifically football, that created this competitive drive, this mindset to compete to win. And I knew nothing about healthcare sales outside of probably what I saw on Love and Other Drugs, the movie, And so I finished my degree, very fortunate to be in a lot of championship teams, and, got used to kind of.
You played at Oklahoma how many years?
I was at Oklahoma for 1 year. So
okay.
Big 12 champions, lost in the Fiesta Bowl my senior year. But all that to say, those experiences kind of molded the mindset and created the mentality that I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to maintain kind of a leadership capacity and be in an environment where it was competitive. And for all those that have been in the healthcare sales world, it's a very competitive environment, because at the end of the day, whether it's drug, device, diagnostic, these are all great options for providers. Mm-hmm. They become a commodity in a sense. So how do you separate yourself in a world of commoditization? Your brand. And so that's what I'm very passionate about. And I think what's created a platform to keep elevating in titles and scope and role and orgs, et cetera, is this win the day mantra. But let's backtrack. So all that being said, fortunate, I mentioned relationships. I met some good mentors throughout my time playing, and that cascaded an opportunity to interview at AstraZeneca. Tremendous training, kind of cut my teeth in the sales realm there, launched great drugs, Crestor, Nexium, Atacand, Onglyza. These are products, right, that essentially sell themselves. So I was a little bit, blessed when I first entered the industry.
Yes.
And, parlayed those into a variety of roles, right? Boston Scientific, the device space, which for any of our listeners that are kind of trying to understand, biopharma versus device, I love the device world. I was on call 365, 24/7, worked for the most successful cardiac rhythm management rep in the industry in Darren Rack. So the exposure I had early on as a—
And how long were you there? Because you started AZ, then you went to Boston Scientific. You made that transition. How long were you there at Boston Scientific?
I was at Boston right around 4 years. Really had no intention of leaving, Dave. I loved it. Carried the pager. Like I said, I was groomed by the absolute best in the industry, and had a privilege to really work with the most skilled operators, electrophysiologists in the country. Dr. Brian Lay, who is probably the most revered electrophysiologist in the U.S., much less maybe international, was really a guy that took me under his wing, helped train me, helped give me insight onto how to connect with the customer, how to clinically sell, but also how to value, the staff, and how to ensure that there's, value add to all parties involved. So Boston Scientific, still doing great things. I was part of their Pinnacle kind of global advanced leadership program. So in theory, I thought that was kind of going to be my long-term career. And, like with anything, opportunities present when you're driving results, and had an opportunity to parlay that success to be one of the first 3 U.S. commercial hires for an enterprise InfraredX, who at the time was kind of going through an entire new rebranding to the U.S. commercial market. And that was great exposure to capital sales. Obviously they had a capital component as well as a disposable component, but that was my first taste in healthcare, where I really had a product that was a conceptual sell where I was competing against the Goliaths of Volcano, Medtronic, St. Jude, Abbott, Boston Scientific. That's where I really learned through, probably, a lot of no's, a lot of just cold calling, a lot of hitting the road and banging on doors, that I better figure out a way to network, to align with the right parties, to understand what drives value to a hospital system in order to move product. Mm-hmm. And that was a great experience. And we built teams. We took that product from a footprint of 0 and really made a lot of noise in the market during my tenure there.
Well, fascinating. And so you're there at Boston. Then what made that transition? That transition back into, it looks like you went back to AZ for part of your career.
Yeah, we were acquired by a Japanese distributorship, Nipro, during my tenure at InfraredX. And I will tell you, I talked to a lot of mentors, both on the provider level as well as kind of in the healthcare sector. And, the one thing I started looking at, Dave, is how many individuals do you know that might have a BiD pacemaker implanted? A handful. How many people do you know in this world that are impacted by a drug? Every one of us. Mm-hmm. And so when I started looking at where I wanted to continue to take my career, I knew I had exposure to, kind of the sales side, a lot of exposure with InfraredX, even on like branding, creating markets, contract negotiations. All those things help position me for really a newly created enterprise within AstraZeneca, where we were launching a very, very disruptive product that just so happened to compete with the 1,000-pound gorilla in cardiovascular medicine, and that was Plavix. And so I was very fortunate at the time to be the youngest global director hired into AstraZeneca, around tremendous teammates. Obviously, the organization speaks for itself. Excellent training, great leadership training, was surrounded by, really just what excellence looks like in culture, in process, in contracting, et cetera, and joined that organization on the kind of commercial side, and then morphed my way into the U.S. market access side. Got a lot of exposure to institutional contracting, payer contracting, the entire portfolio of products that they represent, which encompassed oncology, respiratory biologics, the vaccine, cardiometabolic, renal, et cetera. So, the journey has definitely been, a lot of exposure to a lot of different things across healthcare. But I think what it's allowed, at least myself, to do is always be surrounded by great products, but more importantly, great people that have given me guidance on taking that next step, taking the risk, really betting on yourself to every opportunity kind of learn something new, so that ultimately you're positioning for whatever role you might, end up wanting. And for me, that was ultimately leading a broad global enterprise from the sales side and making real big impact, right, on just people, providers, patients, et cetera.
Chase, as you're talking, I see the sign, win the day, win the day. Tell us a little bit what's behind that. Tell us the story about win the day and what inspired that for you to kind of make that your life motto.
Yeah, well, it's obviously 3 words. I didn't coin them. I didn't, phrase it, but I will tell you, it's a mantra that 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago, I really was very intent on. If it ends in Y, we all have a choice. And the choice for myself and those around me that are hopefully kind of impacted by it is win the day. And Dave, I'll tell you where I really started over-indexing on not just win the day, but the branding and kind of the personal brand to drive corporate performance was really during COVID. And for all those that are in the healthcare sector, being in front of customers is what makes us all tick, right? That's what really separates the winners in this field for those that just don't cut it. And in COVID, access was irrelevant. It didn't happen. Everyone had to evolve. The dinosaur that didn't evolve became extinct. I looked at really we talked about my sports background. I looked at what college coaches were doing with social media to impact and go after recruits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've always tried to mirror excellence. And if somebody is doing something that I can mimic or mirror, why not essentially copycat it? So I really started leveraging kind of the win the day mantra and over indexing on social forums, whether that was Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, to try to establish this personal brand, but also lever the corporate portfolio that I essentially was representing and figuring out ways to impact without being directly in front of customers.
I guess.
And that's where it all started.
Yeah, I remember, I had a large account in Dallas during this whole time. I remember, I couldn't speak to the hematologist, but sometimes the nurse practitioners and the PAs would speak to me and meet with me one-on-one for coffee. And then through that, leverage those relationships, with virtual calls. And it's even like today, and there's accounts that say, well, we use RxVantage. Well, maybe they're booked out for a year, but can you leverage the contacts outside of that to set up another virtual call? And, thankfully things are starting to open up, but it's still a challenge for those across the board in medical device, but also in oncology. And now tell us a little bit about your personal life here. What do you tell us about self-development, but also just what you do for fun when you're not working?
Yeah, well, I think, we talk about sales. We talk about, I think, the grind it takes to be respected by customers in this field of healthcare. And you always have to have a why. And my why is my family, right? That's who I wake up for every day. I'm very blessed. Like probably anyone in sales, I think you're judged by your better half. And I definitely outkick my coverage with my wife. And we're blessed with, 2 boys and a 6-month-old and a golden doodle. I don't want to leave her out because, she was our COVID baby. But yeah, I mean, personal life is very important to me. I think there's a fine line and something that any good sales professional leader has to value. And that's kind of your personal life and work-life balance. That being said, Dave, I think there's a lot of sacrifices that anyone who wants to take the step or leap into medical sales, pharma sales, and wants to differentiate themselves versus the competition, your family has to buy into that journey. And I'm blessed that I've got a very supportive, family that the long nights, the dinners, the travel, it takes what it takes to win in this business. And to operate with that standard daily, the why is important. And for me, it's the family kind of on, I guess, when I enjoy the downtime, who doesn't like fun in the sun? 30A, is a place where I've got a second home and spend a lot of time making waves there with the family. But, outdoor activities, I referenced, I was blessed to play football. I still think that keeping the mind and body sharp in the gym is key for me. So I'm very routine driven. And that's something that I think allows me to perform in the corporate arena as well, because a lot of folks say, Dave, don't judge a book by its cover. I believe a little different. I think each and every one of us, at first glance, at first look, that first articulation, everybody makes a decision somehow psychologically on how you present, how you walk, how you talk. So I'm very cognizant of walk it like you talk it. And
I like it.
To do that, you've got to make sacrifices on the personal side to perform on the professional side.
That's great. And you mentioned your health and working out and still being disciplined. When do you fit that in as far as your schedule? Is it morning? Is it evening? What is it? You have a family. What does your day look like to get that in?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, it's early morning, you knock it out. But for those of us that are in this space, right, there's a lot of nuance to the schedule. There really is no schedule. You've got Zooms, you've got travel, you've got, a variety of meetings, conferences, et cetera. So I really just try to prioritize about 27 minutes of focus in the gym. And I know the 27 might sound a little cliche, but I try to be very diligent on, my routine, and I don't deviate from that routine in the gym. I do the same workout, the same pull-ups, jump rope, et cetera. That way I know when I'm ready to dial it in, I can get it in and then move on. So I think it varies, but I probably perform the best early in the morning.
I like it. Knock it out early, 27 minutes, not too long. I like that you continue to, develop yourself as well as you've grown. Chase, there's listeners who are curious about what path they should go, whether it's medical device or pharmaceutical, and perhaps climbing the ladder, or perhaps in the diagnostic space. Let's kind of go through a few basic questions. If a 23-year-old said, "Okay, I want to make a difference in patients' lives," what are some questions? One question they might come up. They might ask, well, "Which one can you make more money in?" What would you tell that 23-year-old who's trying to navigate that path? What would you tell that person?
Well, I think, first and foremost, before obviously you think about the dollars that can come in any industry, right? Because if you perform in whatever you do, I think dollars and monetization comes. As far as kind of process or approach, and this is the track I was fortunate to take. I think as you're cutting your teeth in healthcare, if you can really get with an enterprise that can really clinically train you on anatomy, on why providers are making decisions they are, then you can better understand how to align that product and niche that particular service, drug, device, et cetera, with your customer base. So, my advice to any young person looking to get into this sector is, first and foremost, I think you need to have a kind of a patient-focused heart and mindset where what you're doing is impacting someone other than yourself. You check the box there. I think you have to be willing to understand that, your schedule is really not your schedule anymore. You may be sitting hours in a waiting room waiting for 3 minutes to make an impact on a provider. And so that's where I think, especially those that might have come from a competitive background where you're used to instant gratification, this is not the world for it. Device a little more so, because you're tracking down POs, you're in the operating room, you're seeing patients. In my case, when I was in the cardiac space, go from complete heart block to getting a pacemaker to being able to wake up and walk that next day. But in the diagnostic sector, even the drug sector, you're doing a ton of work daily, and you may not see the fruits of that labor for 3, 6, 9, even 12 months. So you've got to have a very patient-centric approach, but also a patient's pays approach. Because this is not a field where, if you're initially getting into it to make money, that's the wrong approach, because you're going to have to be, a grinder, a gopher, a clinical specialist, an associate. I mean, you don't walk up and just get to pick up the bag and have your own sales territory and then keep climbing. Those days, unless your daddy's the founder, are done.
In your own personal goals and development, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
We will see. I think timing is key for anything. I'm blessed to be with the tremendous organization at Caris, where I truly believe we are innovating and leading the field in precision medicine. I mean, what we're doing with data, what we're doing with some of the products that we've brought to market, Dave, is really going to revolutionize care. I'm big on goals. From a personal standpoint, I referenced this earlier. I'm always wanting to level up, per se, right? And I think complacency is really a word that none of us should be comfortable with. Can't, won't are things that I don't even allow my boys or my daughter, or even words in our household to exist. So for me, in the next 5 years, obviously putting Caris on the map, growing this, branding this, being the standard of care in the diagnostic space is my first and foremost focus. I want to continue to climb. I want to lead an organization that has the ability to bring innovative products to the market, personally have the ability to go after alpha talent, kind of build this, commercial enterprise of like-minded individuals, diverse backgrounds, and really just keep stair-stepping my way as a healthcare leader into making broad-scale global impact. And, my focus always being on patients, providers, and ultimately payers to really bring solutions to the market.
Well, Chase, you have provided us with a lot of great insights hearing your story, but also given us kind of a peek into the industry for those who are brand new and trying to consider, is this a career for them, but also for the person who's been in the industry and is wanting to advance, wanting to grow their career. How can people follow you, get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, Dave. Well, I mentioned early on, big believer in the power of, social connectivity. I think that's how you and I were able to connect, and, got to give you a lot of kudos for what you're doing on here, and really, giving your audience a lot of free tutelage, right, on how to make things successful. But I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm fortunate to be able to mentor a tremendous amount of individuals that are looking to, break into the industry, have success in the industry. So I would just say, social forums. I'm very active at conferences, but anything I can do to help sharpen the sword, and really even vice versa. Been very blessed to connect with others that have had success in my field, that have been very open, right, to having conversations. So I would encourage your audience to really just have the belief of closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't reach out, if you're not connecting, if you're not putting yourself out there to create opportunities of dialogue, then there's no opportunity to win the day.
Love it. Let's go win the day. Thank you so much, Chase, for joining the show.
Thanks, Dave.